Under pressure, I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Balky, how are you? I'm having some problems. I can't hear you. I'll work on it.
On my audio problems, and we'll try to fix that. 100%.
How about me now, Balky?
Oh, Hudson can't hear you. Hudson can't hear me either. Farrell, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're live now. We can hear you.
Thank you. Okay.
I was sending you an emergency telephone call. I know that's very 1984. But,
George Orwell would be proud.
You know, I was calling you, and you know, I just couldn't. And boy, I know that was a spirited introduction that all of the high stakes fantasy football and the FFPC missed, and it's just, you know, sometimes that just happens.
It happens. I'm getting so the Dizzle and our resident Ivy League professor in the chat right now saying that they couldn't hear me. We're getting now from Kern and from Thomas Glaze, a longtime listener of the program, saying that the audio is good now. So my apologies. I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened, but we're back on now, which is good because this is an important weekend, Farrell. Yeah. Now, my father, long before I started playing fantasy football, told me that this is his favorite weekend of NFL football. This is the weekend where we ostensibly get the top 8 teams playing in the NFL, and they're not overlapping each other. We get to watch 2 games tomorrow on Saturday. We get to watch 2 games on Sunday. Is this your favorite weekend of NFL football of the season?
You know, buddy, when they line up, it's my favorite weekend. But, you know, Pops is right in that. And he's also we saw some of the elements of that last week. I think whenever the historical comebacks in games, unusual starts, and teams being resilient, we saw teams that played for each other and worked together with each other that, you know, Balky, look, if I told you last weekend that Kirk Cousins was going to throw for over 300 yards or well, I don't know if he got that, but he completed.
He did. I think he did.
He completed over 75% of his passes. And if I were to tell you that would happen, you would have told me the New York Giants would be packing up and getting ready for 2023 regular season. So my point is that it's the vernacular of the NFL and amongst the fans has been any given Sunday. But I also think that every week is a new season. And your dad is right that that we could see some things that we haven't seen all year from the remaining 8 teams that we have the pleasure of watching this weekend.
Mea culpa here. I was wrong because I got Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones mixed up. Kirk Cousins threw for 273 yards last weekend. Daniel Jones threw for 301. And oh, by the way, the second best running back on the New York Giants last week, Daniel Jones, 17 carries, 78 yards. Farrell, what did you make of that? So okay, hold on. Before you talk, and I apologize for interrupting you. So we have Ben Gretsch on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network last night, and I talked to him about this Daniel Jones thing that I saw between the Giants and the Vikings. In college, I coached a powder puff girls football team.
Mm-hmm.
And there was it was a real short tournament. It was semifinals and the championship. But the team I coached, both teams we played against could not stop this little dump off to the tight end. You know, a little two-step drop from the quarterback, dump off to the tight end. We're getting 8-9 yards a clip. And that was the way I felt watching the Giants and Vikings this past weekend with Daniel Jones doing these little end arounds. The Vikings had no answer to it. 17 carries, 78 yards, 4.6 yards a carry for Daniel Jones, the quarterback. And no surprise at all to me, Ed Donatel, the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, fired on Monday morning.
Well, yes, the offensive game plan was very impressive by the New York Giants, and you got the feel that they controlled this game early. They jumped to a lead and they kept it. And they stayed there, and it was impressive. Defensively, when you say that they couldn't stop the tight end, I think they sort of let the tight end.
Well, hold on. I want to make this clear. They couldn't stop Jones running. The powder puff team that I was coaching could not stop the tight end. That's the inference I was making.
It's late at night and I haven't had enough caffeine. But I will tell you what. I heard that from fantasy players that want to discuss the idea that they should play Goddard because Hawkinson had such a fantastic game. And I think that perhaps that is, but I believe they were letting those passes. They were playing between the 20-yard lines with these teams. And look, I like this secondary. We're going to ask our guest a little later on who he's going to start on the Philadelphia wide receivers. And I think it's a puzzle. It's a difficult question if you want to start any of them at all because you have Foster Moreau and Adoree Jackson, Moreau's UCLA and Jackson's USC, and Love, the safety, is Notre Dame, and McKinney, the other safety, he's Alabama. There's another UCLA player working in that backfield. My point is that these guys have been playing in big games for a long time, and they know how to play. And that's another thing your father would enjoy. You're not going to see this weekend silly penalties. At least you shouldn't. You've got players on these teams that know how to play at the top level of their game. So, yeah, it's a fascinating weekend.
It's going to be a great weekend. We're going to preview the whole thing here coming up on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I want to remind everybody, if you have not got in right now, go shoot for a $100,000 grand prize in the FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge number 2 or a $25,000 grand prize in the Footballguys Playoff Challenge right now at myffpc.com. The FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge 2, $200 entry. The Footballguys, only a $35 entry. So you can win $100,000 in the FFPC version. Even though you're entering $35, you can still win $25,000 in the Footballguys Playoff Challenge. Now, it's real easy to understand. You're having one player per team because there's only 8 teams left. So you have an 8-player lineup. There is no monkeying around with salary caps or drafts or, I got to worry about to start this guy or bench this guy going forward. No. Once 4:30 p.m. Eastern time comes tomorrow, Saturday, January 21st, your lineup is locked. And you can just enjoy the playoffs the rest of the way and see how your team goes. That's all at myffpc.com. Now, if you're looking for advice, besides what you're going to get on the show tonight, go ahead and go back and watch the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, which aired Tuesday night with former world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge overall champion Tejas Badawala, a guy who has finished in the top 5 in the world-famous Playoff Challenge last year, a guy who has numerous top 10 finishes in the FFPC Playoff and Divisional Playoff Challenge. He had a lot of good insight, talked about the teams that you need to be worried about. Obviously, the 8 teams to be worried about, but the players to be worried about on each team. And you can check that out, rotoviz.com/podcast, or the video version, the FFPC playoff or the FFPC YouTube channel, youtube.com/FFPC fantasy. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, and share this video with all your friends, and get notified so you know when we have the next videos coming up on the FFPC playoff. FFPC, I keep saying playoff. It's in my mind. All I can think about is the FFPC Playoff Challenge right now, which is what you should be thinking right now too, because you can still win a 6-figure grand prize here with the next couple of weeks still available for you to play, compete, and have a lot of fun enjoying the NFL playoffs going forward. MyFFPC.com. Okay, let's get into this stuff that you need to know for the divisional playoff challenge. Farrell, I'm gonna kick this over to you here and get your insight. Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network on Twitter posted earlier today that the right guard for the Cincinnati Bengals, Alex Kappa, the left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, Jonah Williams, are out for the divisional round, dealing with ankle and knee injuries. Now, this is interesting because Joe Burrow, a popular choice, who I think is going to be a popular choice in the divisional round, the divisional playoff challenge for the FFPC, is going to be behind at least 2 backup offensive linemen, maybe 3. And they're facing a Buffalo defense. Yeah, they don't have Von Miller, but they still have the NFL's 14th highest pressure rate. Last week against the Ravens, Joe Burrow was sacked 4 times and quite frankly avoided a lot of other QB pressures in that game to make some plays or at least get rid of the ball. Now, you have to understand for the divisional playoff challenge, Joe Burrow is not going to have the time to throw downfield to Jamar Chase, to T. Higgins like he has in the past. He's probably going to have opportunities, a few opportunities here, but maybe not as much as he would have against, these also rans or these, 4-5 win teams in the regular season like he did. So, Farrell, the question here is, when you look at submitting your divisional playoff challenge lineup, how do you assess the Cincinnati offensive line? How big of a detriment is this going to be, not only to Burrow, but to Chase, Higgins, Hayden Hurst as well?
It's terrible for the running backs. Difficult running back play anyway this weekend. So you look at the receivers. Which one do you use? You want to. I think here that how quickly the ball is going to have to get out of Burrow's hands. I think mandates that you've got to play Chase. I think that the 2 offensive linemen, it's the next man up football, Balky, and I believe in it. I think it'll be Deontay Smith, who's a big tackle out of East Carolina that I like a lot. And Max Sharpening was out of Northern Illinois, and Houston cut him very early in camp. And those guys are getting a chance on a big stage, and we'll see how they do. And Burrow, if there is any quarterback in the NFL that plays his style of football that's competent with dealing with the pass rush, it would be Burrow. He's been sacked, hit, beaten down more than any other quarterback in the league over the last couple of years. So you got to think about, okay, these are the starters. How far from the guys that are replacing them in talent wise, and we might see guys that are coached up and anxious to play. But yes, as far as what I want to say, that T. Higgins, it takes a long time for him to get downfield. He's a long strider. He runs timing routes. He's a great player. The fact that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Burrow, I think you get the ball to Chase, and you get the ball quickly too.
I have formulated a divisional playoff challenge lineup, which we will get to in the bottom part of the show. But I think this T. Higgins thing is going to be worth a conversation as we get to it, because he may or may not be in that lineup. The good part about the Cincinnati offensive line, keep in mind this: they have Jackson Carman, who I believe was an early second-round pick out of Clemson a couple years ago. He's not a world beater or whatever, but he holds his own there, so I think that helps. And you also have Ted Karras, the former New England Patriots offensive lineman, at center, calling the shots. And I think that helps out too when you have a talented veteran offensive lineman to sort of help out. I've always been of the mind that cohesion, chemistry, that goes further in your offensive line than talent does. And Farrell, I don't know if you have any feelings on that, but watching the Green Bay Packers over the past 20 years here, I feel like they've had some pretty talented linemen here, but the total units that have been the most successful here have been the units that have chemistry, that know how to work with each other. And I think that's kind of more important than acquiring a lot of talent on the offensive line.
Yeah, they get guys together that can play together for a long time. That's what's going on over at Philadelphia. And you take a look at this Cincinnati team, they put together some of their guys in the draft, but they got a lot of guys coming in here that other teams gave up on. And, that takes coaching to bring that type of thing together. And it takes a concerted effort from a lot of people in the locker room. So we'll see what happens. But these guys aren't not a huge drop off in talent, but they may be a huge drop off in just how to play the game and how to line up against Buffalo. So yeah.
All right, so two quick points I want to make before we get to the fourth place finisher in the Football Guys playoff challenge last year, the $10,000 winner, Justin Kueber. Before we get to him, two things I want to bring up. Number one, it's in the chat. Justin Fung, does anyone actually believe in Purdy this week? I guarantee you, and I haven't seen the Dizzle's comment on this, but I know the Dizzle believes in Purdy. Errol, I believe in Brock Purdy this week as well. The thing is with, and I can't remember if we've talked about this at all, but I believe Kyle Shanahan's system rewards quarterbacks that have decent arm strength, have decent mental acuity to analyze defenses and understand what's coming at them. And number three, have legs that can make something out of nothing. You don't necessarily have to give up the draft capital they did to get Trey Lance, because we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo succeed in this scheme, Colin Kaepernick, and now Brock Purdy. And not to take away from any of those quarterbacks, because I think they all had certain talents. But Brock Purdy, I think, is a guy that is able to fulfill everything Kyle Shanahan's offense asks of him, and he's been doing it to great aplomb so far. Now, the one thing I will say about Purdy is this is the toughest defense he has faced so far. I don't expect him to do what he did against Seattle last week, which was throw for 300 yards, throw for 3 touchdowns, and run win it. But I do expect him to throw for over 200 yards. I do expect him to throw a couple of touchdowns, and I think he wins this game. I'm a believer in Brock Purdy this week. Farrell, what about you?
Yeah, they make fantastic plays, the Dallas Cowboys, but they don't play consistently fantastically through the game. What I liked about Purdy in his touchdowns last week, he hit Mitchell and he hit McCaffrey, and he was way deep into the progressions to find those players. You said understand what's going on. He understands what's going on because he's been well trained and well developed to play this position. His quarterback coach, Will Hewlett, told me that there's not his personal quarterback coach told me that he hasn't had as hard a working player in all his years of being in the business, and that's paying dividends. And this is another example of what we were talking about with Cincinnati line. Guy stepped up. I had to take everybody to the woodshed and calling me from the KFFSC saying, well, my season's over. It's done for the 49ers. I won't get anything out of Debo now. We're going so deep. I said, you don't know that. And now you're in a situation where this quarterback has shown that he's impervious to whatever the defenses can throw at him. He's got great players around him. So, sure, he can keep this going. And I think it's a 4-point spread because the San Francisco is used to winning close games. They know how to win close games. The game could be 16-10, and the opposition you don't really feel is in the game. And that's part of it. They're not afraid to – this is one team that's not afraid that when they get into a scoring position to put 3 points on the board and go play defense. And but I think they clear the 4 points. I think they have good fantasy days for a lot of players. Your tight end here probably catches a touchdown because he's going to be in that progression. And yeah, so I'm very, very high on Brock Purdy, and we'll have the real test when he goes on the road to Philadelphia. But I don't think they want to see him. I think there's some other teams they'd like to see next week.
One thing I should bring up too, for anybody thinking, oh, Brock Purdy is this great Cinderella story, and maybe he is, but keep in mind that when he left Iowa State and entered the NFL, he was a 3-time All Big 12 quarterback. He held 32 Iowa State school records, most career pass attempts, completions, percentage, yards, passing touchdowns with 81, total touchdowns with 100. He had 14 games with 300-plus passing yards. That's nearly triple the previous school record held by Brett Meyer, who, I don't know him either. It doesn't matter. Brock Purdy is a guy that people are underrating right now. Now, maybe he falls to Dallas. Hudson Kern-Reed, who's in the chat room right now, maybe he falls to his Dallas Cowboys. Maybe he gets to Philadelphia and plays against Jalen Hurts. It's going to be a great matchup. I have said from the get-go, and I'm not changing it right now, I think it's a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl, and I'm very excited to see what Brock Purdy does going forward. Now, we have to get to one other – yes, Farrell, I have to give this to you here. I'm going to get to one other point here before we get to our guest tonight. I do apologize, but at least Justin Kueber is feasting on the shrimp cocktail and the crab cakes we have put out for him in the green room. So that's good for him, right?
Left over from
No, it's not. I freshened it up. It's
a little crusty.
No.
We're using ketchup. That's not really cocktail sauce. That's Heinz 57.
No. We're using. I special ordered in the St. Elmo Steakhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana. The
Now
world
we're
famous
talking.
cocktail sauce. Yes, that is in there right now for Justin.
It's got some kick to it.
It does. It's very spicy. Very spicy. So before we get to, I have to give you some props because when we were going on our FFPC playoff challenge lineups last week, I talked about Saquon Barkley. You said, Balky, what about Isaiah Hodgins? This is a player who's been coming on. This is a player that, for whatever reason, seems like the number one receiver for the Giants. And this is a player who can make some plays and put up some numbers. And put up some numbers he did. Last week against the Minnesota Vikings, 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. He is no longer on the injury report for the Giants game against Philadelphia this week. Now, in week 14, when they went up against the Eagles, 4 catches, 38 yards, and 1 touchdown. But I think it was like since early December, this dude has gotten no fewer than 4 catches every single week, and it's obviously been higher in a lot of weeks. So you look at this guy, and Farrell, I'm going to give you the opportunity to double down here. If you're looking for a Giant this week, is it Barkley? Do you go back to old reliable? Or is Hodgins the guy here? Again, if the Giants lose to the Eagles, Hodgins is probably the play over Barkley. How do you view Hodgins for the FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge this week?
Well, naturally, if he's in your lineup, he's staying in your lineup. So to play in, yes. I probably would take Isaiah due to the fact that it is a road game and we feel that the Giants will be in a chase position. He is, this is a player that dealt through the talent maze at Buffalo. Buffalo made a mistake by letting him go. They might have been trying to sneak him on the practice squad, but he was claimed by the Giants, and I'm surprised that he got that far in the waiver process. This is the kind of season he's having is what I've always envisioned for Claypool. He's a similar type player, receiver, but he might be a little better natural catcher, and that's saying something. He's growing into his game. This is probably the player that I would go with, especially when I saw what the Giants were willing to do with their quarterback down around the goal line last week. And Barkley is having a wonderful, wonderful run, and he's playing much like he was when he first came into the league. But what we need is catches, PPR, touchdowns, and some yardage. So, I'm going to stick with Isaiah.
And I'll say this, too, for what it's worth. I talked to a lot of pundits this past week, both in the high-stakes industry, the NFL, whatever. And I was of the opinion, Farrell, that, I looked at all 4 of these games and like, God, according to Vegas, the Cowboys probably have the best chance to spoil the home teams this week,
right,
and get the upset over the Niners. But after speaking with a lot of people this week, it seems like the popular upset choice is the Giants in Philadelphia this week. Do you share that? Do they have the best chance at getting to the championship game this week? Well, of all the road teams, I should say.
If you were still talking to your dad, he would come in with the old school adage that it is very difficult to beat a good team 3 times in one season. And that's what the Eagles will be attempting to do here. It's a team that's playing with increased confidence. So, yes, if Philadelphia will benefit. This is a big point spread in this game. So I really don't expect the Giants' magic to continue, and I don't expect Dallas. I could see the Giants having a better run in Philadelphia than I can the Cowboys with 49ers. I think the 49ers are a superior team, especially in defensive against the run. They'll know what to do with the tight end. It's a safety game there. We're not going to have the same kind of game from Schultz that we had at Tampa. This is they get the short week going on a difficult road. And Prescott played his best game of the season, and I doubt if he'll have that same kind of success. So I forgot what the question was with fantasy football. Hudson Kern Reed said something about me, and you were very kind to bring up that we got Hodgins right last week. Hudson made a point that
You got him right.
I
You
thought
got him
he
right.
thought Hawkinson was a great sleeper last week, and
Yeah.
Hawkinson surely was. And there's potential with these athletes on these teams. There's not a soft spot anywhere, and that's why it's so intriguing. And when you're putting together these lineups, and if I had told you that. Everyone seemed to play Jefferson. If I had told you that the Giants could do with Jefferson what they did last week, you would tell me I'm crazy. And that's where it gives you pause for some of the Eagles support that, what's A.J. Brown going to have? Can they have that same kind of game against him? So I just can't wait for the games to start, Balky. I'm not going to be able to sleep. Can't sleep, Balky.
That's true. Well, listen, like we can't sleep right now because we have to figure out and all the viewers especially have to figure out their divisional playoff challenge lineups for the FFPC, and who better to bring in than a guy who won not necessarily in the divisional playoff challenge last year, but a dude who took 4th place in the Football Guys playoff challenge. He cashed a $10,000 grand prize last year. He's been playing fantasy football for the better part of a decade and a half. In 2019, he branched into the world of high stakes fantasy football and obviously got a big payday last year. He's here to tell you what to do with your divisional playoff lineups, how he had so much success last year. Please welcome in the one, the only, the incomparable Justin Kueber. Welcome in, Justin, the pride of Canada.
How's it going? Yeah,
Welcome
exactly
in.
right. Yeah, all this talk about shrimp and it must got confiscated at the border or something.
Yeah, the Canadians don't get that.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. No, it's good. It feels weird being here on this side of the camera. Usually, I'm the one kind of on the other side watching the podcast and watching everything. So it's cool. It's cool.
So this is interesting because so tell me before we get into what you do for a living, you ended up getting 4th place in the Football Guys playoff challenge last year, beating, a 10,000 plus other teams or whatever it was to try to get that 5-figure prize. Can you tell us about sort of what the lineup submission was building your team and then watching your team ride it, throughout the playoffs?
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't really watch it after the first week. I wrote off the entire lineup. My big play was Higgins, and Higgins had a crap week that week 1. And I was like, okay, I'm done. It was good. Throw my money in there, see what happens. But I'm also a huge Rams fan. So I was able to ride that wave and not really pay attention to any of the fantasy lineups or anything like that. And then sure enough, I went to go do my my recap after the Super Bowl was over, slightly hungover. And sure enough, I was looking for my name and I saw 4th and I was like, no, that's gotta be a typo. And no, sure enough, it was 4th and it was Higgins, like the Higgins play that was the big one, especially with that multiplier there in the Super Bowl. And that was the big play. That was the big kind of difference. I think most people were going Chase or Mixon. I think Mixon was actually on the winning lineup, but Higgins was that big play. I think I had Josh Allen as my QB. I went A.J. Brown instead of Derrick Henry, obviously Cooper Kupp. I can't remember who else was on that lineup, but it was it was nice to get that $10,000 check, especially coming from USD to Canadian. That was sure nice.
Well, that's just another reason to get all the Canadians in on the FFPC division.
Oh, exactly. A bunch of my buddies joined this year just because, like, oh, if you could do it, you're a dummy, and we'll see how they do.
All right, so you're not a dummy, obviously, and I'll tell you why you're not a
film school guys.
Well, this is what we're going to get into. So just I don't know if I brought this up on the show before, Justin, but I graduated. I was a double major in college, and one of my majors was radio, TV, film. So anytime I get a guy on that can talk intelligently about film or television or what have you, which I think you can do not only from film but for television as well. I love bringing that aspect on. Can you tell our viewers here what you've been doing for a living and what you've achieved so far and your sort of experiences in the media thus far?
Yeah, so I'm an independent filmmaker based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And for those of you who don't know where that is, it's about 6.5-hour drive from the Montana border. So I'm way the hell up north. So I have a production company that specializes in all types of video production. And then me, I'm I'm a director, screenwriter, and producer. So I'm more geared towards, music videos, narrative fictional projects, and then recently a lot of documentary and unscripted work. So that's been a lot of fun. I guess recently the big project that's been consuming about 3+ years of my life has been a 8-episode docuseries. So yeah, we're almost done. We're on our last episode right now in post-production and that, and then hopefully, selling it to a major streaming platform. We got interest in a few places right now. So yeah, hoping that goes well. I've done episode for Discovery Channel. I've done episode for Paramount Plus, a show called Never Seen Again. I was working behind the scenes on that one. Airport Below Zero was the Discovery Channel one. So kind of have my hands in all different sorts of film related projects, but obviously the passion is documentary and movies. But it's a tough one to branch into.
Well, but the other thing it does, like, because you can edit, you can communicate with everybody on your own schedule, and at that point, it gives the opportunity to submit a lot of lineups to the FFPC Playoff Challenge, Footballguys Playoff Challenge, what have you, and you have been doing it so far. I know I'm gonna. Farrell's got a question for you, but I'm gonna ask the question I know he wants to ask. How closely do you follow the Canadian Football League up in Edmonton?
So I have season tickets to the Elks. For us, I don't know. Canadian football is different. It's fun to go and drink and just kind of enjoy the nice weather that we get for 3 months. The Elks are the worst team in the league. So you don't go for the football. Yeah, that's for sure.
You go for the experience.
Exactly.
Right.
The Elks have had a very, very difficult year, but they do have the best receiver in the league, and he's my client, Kenny Lawler. And so there you go. You can be a Kenny Lawler fan. And, Justin, I wish you would put up your website so everyone watching the show.
Oh, I can do that, Farrell. I'm on it.
Yeah, please do that, because I went over there today. I found that you unlocked, your music videos. It seems like some rockers, and some of the rockers that I have worked with in my days. They have very interesting personal habits as far as their appearance. And I noticed that you darkly lit some of the rocking night, and I thought, well, that's how I should have done that. I wish I had talked to Justin about that. But I thought the Genesis ad was really good for the local dealership there. Everything you touch has got a real nice quality to it. So I'm hoping you'll give us the same story with your playoff teams here. Can you tell us exactly how you're doing in the playoff challenge?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for that. Honestly, that really means a lot. Secondly, in terms of, the FFPC and the Footballguys Playoff Challenge, not so good. I think I'm sitting about 5,000th right now. So in both of them, I don't know. I was looking at my lineup today and going through it. I don't think I got weird enough. I don't think I didn't take enough risks. I ate a lot of chalk. That Jefferson play, I knew I shouldn't have done it the entire week. I was like, no, don't play Jefferson. Don't play Jefferson. Played Jefferson. That's one I'm kind of kicking myself over. What else? I didn't get weird enough in my fades either. I faded Seattle and Miami, which is probably pretty chalky. Mm-hmm. And I should have got different there. I probably wouldn't have landed on Metcalf. If anybody out of Seattle, it would have been Lockett. Miami, I had the kicker in for the longest time, and I switched out at the last minute. Didn't think they'd be able to push the ball on Buffalo there. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Still got, I guess, a chance if Cincinnati goes through. I got Burrow as my quarterback, which I feel he's probably not the highest owned, maybe the 4th highest owned. And yeah, we'll see. Ate the McCaffrey chalk, which I feel like that's
so you're looking up with high expectations. I'm just curious how far back you go that where you legitimately have a chance to move forward. And I think one of my teams is around 900th or 1,000th. I wonder if that team has any statistical chance. I think I got burned with Jefferson too. But,
okay, but I will interrupt you guys both and tell you that Darren Armani, fantasymojo.com, at fantasymojo on Twitter, the godfather of the pros versus Joes, a guy who contributes so much to this program and doesn't even realize it. The dude who won the Football Guys Playoff Challenge last year, Justin beating you. He was 3 spots above you. The dude who won after the first weekend in 1,000th plus place, right? And came out of nowhere, right? So even though your team, and I'm speaking not only to you guys, but to everybody, even if your team, you feel like I got no chance this week, just keep watching. You might be surprised what happens in the divisional round. You might be surprised how far your team can shoot up. And Justin, I feel like that was your story last year too. Like you were actually surprised, like, oh my God, look at what this team is doing right now as it went on. And obviously Higgins in the Super Bowl was huge for you as well. But that ride had to be pretty thrilling.
Oh yeah, that multiplier helps. And that's the thing too. It's with someone like Burrow, who's probably low owned, gets a couple rushing scores, couple, throwing, as long as it's probably not to chase, then, might be sitting okay there. Who knows? I'm just, I'm grateful there's a second chance contest. So loading up on that one.
All right. So let's do this. And the questions are coming fast and furious in the chat right now. So the first one I want to do is our resident Ivy League professor from Cornell. Never heard of it. That is Hudson Kern-Reed right now. And this is something that we have talked about the last 2 or 3 weeks on the program when we're talking about whether it's the world famous FFPC playoff challenge, whether we're talking about the divisional playoff challenge this week. He wants to know for Jaguars, Travis Etienne or Evan Engram. Justin, your thoughts on how to pick the correct Jaguar this week?
I think the Jags will come out trying to run the ball. I think, that's how you beat KC. I think, if ETN can catch some passes, you're looking nice there. But I just see KC coming out to a strong start. I think they're going to get ahead, and I think they're going to be forced to pass the ball. So I'll probably go Evan Engram there. And he's been hot lately. He's been fantastic.
Farrell, I'm going to let you handle the Chiefs question here that I was going to ask, but what I want to do right now is throw it to the chat again. And Jay Reed, our mutual friend, guy who is a noted FFPC and KFFSC champion, is hanging out right now. Justin, he wants to know, what are your thoughts for the FFPC Divisional Challenge? What are your thoughts on Devontae Smith as the Eagle over Jalen Hurts, over Miles Sanders, over Dallas Goedert, over A.J. Brown? Your thoughts on Devontae Smith this week as the choice for the Eagles?
I like it. It's one of those kind of those risky plays where he's going to be low owned, but you look at his last few games, he's getting 5+ receptions, 70 some yards per game. And, especially if they, double coverage or shadow coverage, A.J. Brown, he could be the recipient of those passes. I don't hate that move at all. I'm probably going A.J. Brown, but it's like that Higgins chase play. I think that's what you got to do to win this contest. So, yeah, like the move.
Well, and if you really wanted to get off your chalk, you've got a giant killer on the team. You've got Boston Scott. Boston Scott can move against the Giants. No one moves that fast. Justin, if you were to come down here and play with us in Kentucky at the KFFSC, you would never see anyone move faster than Jay Reed this year when he finally gets his name called out for a trophy. Jay Reed, Balky, don't get in Jay Reed's way when that trophy is called, because Jay's coming up there to get the trophy. But, Philadelphia's got a lot of talent on that team. It's real – and I'm just curious as to who's going to, and it might be a team effort. It might be, sometimes you get that at Kansas City. You can get a team effort at Kansas City, but I'd like to think back about Travis Kelce when I was putting my Kansas City roster together. I'm thinking, how can I not have Travis Kelce? If I'm not going to have Mahomes, how can I not have Kelce? Because, those 3 touchdowns, that 3 touchdown game in the middle of the season, what if that happens again? That just blows this whole contest up. And it could easily happen. And, you love Tony, and Tony's had 19 touches on the season. I like Juju Smith-Schuster, despite the fact that he was disappointing, only 3 touchdowns so far. Pacheco looks good. McKinnon has made some guys some big money in the playoffs in the FFPC and KFFC. So tell me, is there any chief besides the quarterback and the tight end?
I don't know if I'm taking anyone over Kelce or Mahomes, but if I
there
do,
you go.
It's probably McKinnon. Especially kind of looking forward this week. Who knows what'll happen? I mean, you do beat the Jags through pass catching RBs. But if you look next week, they're playing the Bengals or they're playing the Bills. That's going to be a shootout, lots of passing. That's right in McKinnon's wheelhouse. And if they go further to the Super Bowl, then there you go. He's probably catching a lot there. Could be like what's that guy from a few years ago? Damian Williams. Could be Damian Williams of this year. Yeah.
And like that's what happens, right? Like we talk about, and I know we have talked about, like, guys with, the 3-week sprint in the FFPC main event, the Football Guys Players Championship. There's always that one guy that stands out, and we've had a couple of them from Kansas City over the last couple of years. And Jamal Charles, I think, is the one that always stands out to me, because that was a guy that was sort of like a split time type guy. And then he goes on this crazy run and he helps people win a 6-figure grand prize back in the day for the FFPC main event. And now we're looking at a $500,000 grand prize in the Football Guys, or I beg your pardon, the FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge, and now a $100,000 grand prize, where if you get the right guy here, and maybe it is fading Kelsey, and maybe it is fading Mahomes, and maybe it's McKinnon, maybe it's Pacheco, whatever, but McKinnon is a guy that has helped a lot of people win a lot of money over the last couple of weeks. Is it going to stop this weekend? I don't know. Is it going to continue? Possibly. And that is the question that people are going to have to try to answer going forward here. Speaking of the Chiefs, a team that they could meet in the AFC Championship game here, Justin, is the Cincinnati Bengals. So many players to choose from here. If you believe the Bengals are going to make it to the Super Bowl, maybe it's Joe Burrow. Maybe it's Joe Mixon. Or maybe if you're just looking for the big game between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like you got from T. Higgins last year. Tight end premium format. Maybe you want to go super, the opposite of chalk and get Hayden Hurst on your team. As you look at this Bengals team, number one, how deep do you see them going in the playoffs? And number two, which member of the Bengals is most attractive to you for this divisional playoff challenge?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I had Bengals 49ers for my Super Bowl this year. So that being said, I have Burrow on most of my main lineup teams, and I'm probably going to double down there. Even though, the injuries to the O-line, I still feel like it's going to be a shootout. I still feel like he's going to get the points. And I think the Bengals come out on top on that one. But, if they lose, probably, Chase, he'll be chalk. He's a target monster and he can, transcend any kind of matchup. I guess my other play, if it may be more of a DFS play than anything, but if we're going super risky here, I like Tyler Boyd a lot this week, especially for a one-off. We saw what he did for the first play there in week 17, got a touchdown, and I think his matchup is who is it there? Eli Apple and the rookie there, and those are great matchups for him. So I can see Tyler Boyd being kind of a sneaky one.
Interesting. Tyler Boyd's a nice gamble. It's kind of like the hard ways at the craps table. You just when they hit, it's a thing of beauty, and you wonder why you didn't bet them. And then when you bet them, it doesn't seem to work out that way. Cincinnati has successfully played the Bills. I've been thinking about something. Certain teams know how to play against other rosters. What I notice about the Bills is that when the quarterback begins to move, the typical defenders are taught to move with the quarterback. In other words, to close towards the ball and move towards the quarterback. That's because a moving quarterback can't throw the ball as far as one that's stationary. However, your quarterback here in Buffalo can throw the ball anywhere from any angle at any time. And I think that the Bengals show a lot of maturity in the secondary and knowing how to game plan against this team. I don't think it's going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. And I think that the real star who missed, Balky, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he missed 5 games this year and still caught 89, 90 passes was Stephon Diggs. Did he miss that many games?
I'm looking it up right now.
So what is there anybody on Buffalo? If you don't have the quarterback, is there any? I'll ask you the same question about Kansas City. Is there anybody in the Bills that you have in your roster? Because, you can make a case for a lot of guys, but, man, you can't find talent like Diggs.
Yeah, the one player actually when I was speaking about the matchup with Eli Apple and the rookie, I meant Gabe Davis. That's someone I'm really big on. Also big on Tyler Boyd. But yeah, the matchup against Eli Apple there, that's a nice one for Davis. We saw, what's his name, Allen going for, the home run ball every play last week, it seemed like. And I think Davis is that guy, especially if you see Tre'Davious White kind of shadow. What's his name there? Or no,
Chase?
sorry, I'm getting everyone mixed up.
No.
Yeah, no, I do like Gabe Davis this week.
Okay.
Yeah, hard enough.
Well, and I brought this up last night on my show. Like, Gabe Davis already has shown it, guys. 8 catches, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. Granted, it was probably the greatest game that a lot of people will ever see in their lifetimes in that Chiefs-Bills divisional playoff last year. But he's shown it already. The blueprint is there for him to be successful. So for anybody fading Gabe Davis saying, he can't do it, he's already done it. All right. So that's the thing you have to understand. You want to fade Gabe Davis because you believe in Diggs or Knox or whoever or Josh Allen better. That's fine. But don't discredit Davis because he was the man last year. Let's move on to the NFC here. Justin, I want to ask you here, given that when I looked at and shout out to Darren Armani, fantasymojo.com @fantasymojo. Given that the playoff ownership percentages I saw on the world famous FFPC playoff challenge this past week, Deebo Samuel was owned in fewer than 4% of those lineups. Everybody else had Christian McCaffrey, I think, was the number 1 owned player, but a ton of people had George Kittle as well. But knowing that Deebo Samuel was owned in so few FFPC playoff challenge lineups last week, is this a guy that is a must-have? Given how he blew up against Seattle, given how he has been used by Kyle Shanahan's 49ers the last several years in the playoffs, is this a guy, Justin, that you have to have in your divisional playoff challenge lineup?
I don't know if you have to have him, but he looked good last week. They were using him everywhere. He was coming out of the backfield. It kind of looked like, I don't know, it looked like last year's Deebo almost, where it was just like, couldn't be stopped, and they were kind of scheming him all over the place. That being said, I can see a lot of people in these second chance contests looking at what he did last week going, okay, I'm picking Deebo, and then maybe that reduces the ownership on someone like a Kittle. So there's kind of that aspect to it. But I really like Deebo this week. And moving forward, if you think the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl, I think Deebo is going to play a big role.
That's exactly. If you're a Niners believer, can you imagine a Super Bowl or an NFC championship game where Samuel is not front and center and getting the best of the opportunities? There's no way to imagine that.
And just real quick, I think that's the thing. Like, obviously McCaffrey, win or lose, people are going to be picking him on their, for their Niners for their Niners representative, because they believe that, okay, McCaffrey is going to be heavily involved in this game. But if you are believing that the Niners are going to go to the Super Bowl, and you want to include a guy like Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, a guy like Josh Allen as your quarterback, if you believe the Niners are going to the Super Bowl, the pivot to Deebo Samuel, I don't necessarily think it's that crazy or that like out of left field, because this is a guy that already showed it not only last week, but the last several years in the playoffs. The Niners use him to his strengths, right? Given that he is a hybrid running back wide receiver, Kyle Shanahan knows how to exploit that against defenses. I think it's going to start this week. I think Deebo Samuel is a guy that we are not talking enough about. Well, maybe not us three because we're super smart, but everybody else is not talking about Deebo Samuel enough. And I think this is a guy that is going to weigh in large into not only the FFPC playoff challenge, who had its that had its rosters locked last week, but the divisional playoff challenge this week as well. My apologies. Farrell, you have the next question here.
Okay, I've got it. Well, yeah, and in your ascending career as a filmmaker, there's a lot of duties and a lot of different hats you have to wear in that world. But I think one of the most important is casting. So you're naturally predisposed to be successful at this because you're building a successful cast that's going to work together. So give us your advice as to what anyone who's listening and hasn't played the team or is going to play another team, an additional team, give us your advice of what you've learned about this format and what you would tell someone to do to be successful.
Yeah, I guess if we're going with the filmmaking analogy here, it's telling a story with your lineup. Maybe figuring out your two teams who are going to Super Bowl, figuring out your four who are going to move on, and then going and telling the story of the matchup. Okay, I think this team's going to lose. This game strip's looking like this. I'm going to pick him instead of him because I think he might get faded out. I guess get weird with it. Don't be afraid to fade the chalk, which apparently I was in my first couple lineups there this year. Get weird with it. You gotta risk it for the biscuit.
I was talking with on the Better Sports Network High Stakes Fantasy Football Show last night with Ben Gretsch from RotoViz Stealing Bananas podcast, and I said, hey, 8-team lineup or 8-player lineup as opposed to the 12-player lineup that you have in the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. How do you what's the difference? And the first thing he brought up is you have to fade chalk in this divisional playoff challenge lineup more so than the other one, than the FFPC Playoff Challenge be prior to the wild card round. You have to fade chalk. That was the number one thing he said, and I think and I would piggyback on that and say you don't have to necessarily fade chalk all over, but you have to get a couple of maybe 3 guys that not a lot of people are going to have owned that can really make the difference in trying to win a 6-figure grand prize. And I think one of those compelling teams that we're trying to figure out in this is in Big D, that is going out to Santa Clara to play the Niners this week. Hudson Kern Reeves, Dallas Cowboys. And we do have an email that came in for you, Justin, from Nate in New York City. He writes, hey, Justin, hard to figure out which Cowboy to use this weekend. Any advice you can give me would be much appreciated. Thank you for watching, listening, and writing in, Nate in New York. Do you have a feeling on the Cowboy that you think is the right Dallas guy to go with this weekend, Justin?
For higher owned, I'm probably going CeeDee Lamb. And this is one of the ones I'm kind of debating back and forth right now as I put my finishing touches on a few lineups. It's CeeDee Lamb or it's Pollard. I feel like Pollard is going to have to catch a lot more passes this week if they're going to want to win. And I don't think he's going to be that high of an owned player. I think most people will go CD or maybe even Schultz based on last week. So Pollard is an interesting one for me.
Have you considered where does Dalton Schultz figure into your galaxy brain here as you're trying to figure out this Cowboys thing? You mentioned Lamb and Pollard. Why does Schultz not rate up as high as either of those guys?
That's a good question. I think just based on the matchup, I like Lamb kind of being moved all over. I read a stat. It was something like a touchdown or 100+ yards in whatever consecutive games. That's why I'm leaning there. And Pollard is more just a gut feeling than anything. In terms of Schultz, I'm not against his matchup. I think 49ers, I'm not entirely sure on the stats, but they're probably mid-pack for coverage on tight ends.
I think that's accurate. Accurate. Go ahead.
Dak loves him in the red zone, loves him all over the place, especially since coming back from injury, he's been amazing. And I probably couldn't talk anyone away from that, but for me, that's probably number 3. It's CD or Pollard for me.
Farrell's going to ask you the last question in a second. Just get one final thought on the Cowboys here. Do you envision when you're formulating these divisional playoff challenge lineups, do you foresee the Cowboys losing to the Niners this week, and it is simply a one and done for them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how I have 49ers going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to stick with that right now. So one and done. I can see it being a close game. That's why I'm leaning Pollard. I don't know. I feel like Dallas just needs to run this one. So, yeah, I see Dallas being a one and done on this one.
And if it is a close game and the Niners, just end up winning by 4 or 5 points, you got to believe that part of the reason the Cowboys kept it that close was riding Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And obviously Pollard the more efficient out of the 2 backs this year, which would make sense that Pollard is your choice here for the Cowboys. No question there. I totally understand where you're coming from. Farrell is going to try to understand where you're coming from for the biggest question we're going to ask you all night, Justin.
Oh, we got to shut down that Hudson Kern Reeve and talking about these Cowboy running backs. They said because he might be getting followers, and, we just got to remember that the 49ers allow 77, 78 yards a game to the running back. But I see Pollard catching some I can see Pollard catching some. Hey, Jay Reed's coming in there and wants to talk about Schultz. You know, all these guys that are from around Philly and up in Pennsylvania, they don't see the Cowboys doing anything. But I want to go back.
The only division that has 3 teams still playing on divisional playoff weekend.
Fantastic.
Congratulations, NFC East. Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, all still playing.
It is fantastic. And, Washington was knocking on the door without a quarterback. Okay. A cameo role, someone that you are going to put on your team that really is just going to steal the show. That's what I want to know. It's you think you can think of all the greats that have stepped up and been given the opportunity. Now you've got to come up with someone that we have not mentioned before, so it makes it tough because we've got limited teams. And then I got to know a guy that you just really don't like, that you're fading. There's a couple that I can think of, and I want to know. I want you to share that with. I don't want anybody coming and joining these leagues at the FFPC that doesn't have a really great chance to win. So set them straight, Justin.
Yeah, I guess for me, a guy I'll probably have on my final squad, Gabe Davis. Really love him this week, and I guess naturally that means fading Diggs, which could come back to haunt me. But the way I see it, like I mentioned before, I think the Bengals go all the way to the Super Bowl. That means one and done for Buffalo. Just that one game, that one matchup. I think Gabe Davis outscores Diggs. Risky play. And then I guess also on my Burrow teams, picking Burrow, so probably naturally fading Chase. In terms of just kind of maybe chalky plays that I'm leaning to fade Barkley at the moment. And then looking at someone like a Richie James. That's who I'm going with right now. Yeah, I haven't quite submitted that one just yet.
Let's don't do that. I think Richie James is a fine little NFL football player, and I don't think he can do much for you in fantasy play, especially compared to all these other guys that you could play. So I don't think you'll play.
Now, Justin,
how tall are you, Justin?
How tall?
Yeah,
6 feet.
You tower over Richie James. I mean, God forbid. Come on.
You are Justin. You are not the first filmmaker we have had on this show. Hopefully, you're not the last, because I'm thrilled anytime we get somebody in the industry to come on. I'm looking at your website, JustinKueber.com. That's Justin Kueber.com. The accolades that you have gotten for your work is staggering. It's absolutely staggering, and it seems like you are not slowing down at all.
Oh, I hope not. I don't know. I don't want to slow down. I want to keep going. It's it's been a wild ride. It's been kind of 10 years in this industry, and it's it feels like it isn't slowing down anytime soon. And just as a note, like, I'm just impressed you've said my last name right. Usually people just butcher that one. It's like, I've heard everything like Kueber and Boober, and there's like not even a B in that, and like Bieber, and like, I mean, it's pretty close to Beaver. I'm like 2 letters away from there, but yeah, I'm impressed.
Well, Bucky has a University of Wisconsin education,
right?
Yeah, communication, and there's no problems.
So
you ought to see what is. You ought to see some of the things verbally gymnastics of his good friend Erickson, who I think is
no question.
That guy's in Canada right now.
So Justin, I cheated a little bit because knowing that we can follow you on Twitter at jkeebs, I just sort of assumed it is not Kueber, it is Kueber based on your Twitter and your Instagram at jkeebs.film. So that's how I picked up on that. But I am also picking up on, not only are you a sharp filmmaker, you are a sharp fantasy football player as well, especially coming off the 5-figure 4th place finish in the Football Guys Playoff Challenge last year. I wish you nothing but the best in all your playoff challenges this year, all your leagues in the FFPC and all the leagues that you participate in going forward. We will certainly welcome you back on the show anytime you're available. What is the best place to check out your work? Is it JustinKueber.com, or would you tell our listeners to go somewhere else to enjoy all the content you produce?
Honestly, probably either my website, which I try and keep up to date. Instagram's kind of the go-to for me. I know a lot of people are on Twitter. My Twitter consists of me just tweeting one words about shows I like or plays that.
Yeah, you like the
happen.
Bear, right?
The Bear, yeah, the Bear was
The
awesome.
Bear, yeah.
Yeah, we're checking out. So I like that. But yeah, honestly, my Twitter is pretty much nonsense. So I think Instagram's probably the best, or my website. Yeah.
And that's Instagram.com/jkeebs.film, or just search jkeebs.film on the Instagram app and you'll find all your stuff there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Loving the comment down here.
not Justin Bieber. This is I would say the second most famous Canadian we got on the show tonight, next to Justin Bieber. It is Justin Kueber. Congratulations on all your success so far. Thanks so much for carving out some time on your Friday night. Go out and get those. I know you're probably, for whatever you're shooting now, you got to get up early for that perfect daylight shot. There is nothing like daylight, natural light in those shots. So I know you're probably doing that in whatever you're working on. But I wish you nothing but the best in formulating your lineups going forward. Thank you so much, Justin. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. And enjoy the games. And thanks for putting on these amazing contests. I'm going to enter them every year. I love them. They're a lot of fun. And I hope all my buddies who've tuned in tonight see how much fun it is too. And they enter some more.
We appreciate it, Justin. Thank you so much. Be good, man. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, take care. See you guys.
Justin Kueber, ladies and gentlemen, the pride of Canada, independent filmmakers out there. Again, Instagram.com/jkeebs. That's JKEEBS.film is where you can check out all of his work there. JustinKueber.com, obviously, the $10,000 fourth place finisher in the Football Guys Playoff Challenge last year. Farrell, we're already past overtime. So what I want to do here is I want to throw my divisional playoff challenge at you. I think you've already seen it. And I want to get your feedback on it, similar to what we did last week. So for anybody who is thinking about submitting a divisional playoff challenge lineup, you can do this at myffpc.com. $100,000 to the first place winner. It's only $200 to enter there. So make sure you're doing that. And you could still win a six-figure grand prize before the season ends here with the FFPC, myffpc.com, and then just click on that divisional playoff challenge, sign up and register. I cannot participate in it. I'm an employee of the FFPC, so I'm going to throw you this free lineup. And whether it's replicated or not, I don't know, but I'm going to throw this at you. So here's my philosophy on this one. I'm projecting an Eagles Kansas City Super Bowl with this. So I have Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. My running backs are Christian McCaffrey, again, hard to get away from for the San Francisco 49ers. I have Saquon Barkley. Even though Justin Kueber said to fade him, I still have him in there for the volume of what he could get against the Eagles. He's one of those rare running backs. Even if the Giants are down, I can see Daniel Jones peppering with a lot of targets, and he could have like a 25, 30-point game in that game against the Eagles, which is a high total in that game as well. I'll bring that up in a second to tell you what that's at. Receivers, I went with three of them here. Stephon Diggs from Buffalo. Christian Kirk, this is my pivot on Jacksonville. Everybody's going with Etienne. Everybody's going with Engram. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk, and hopefully he keeps up more than the Joneses this week with Marvin and Zay. I think he outscores them. So that's my pivot here, and going with Christian Kirk from Jacksonville. I have T. Higgins in. Well, my favorite Cincinnati Bengals receiver, again, a guy who paid off huge dividends for anybody who had him in either the FFPC Playoff Challenge or the Divisional Playoff Challenge last year. Higgins went crazy in the Pro Football Championship. I have him in on this lineup. And two tight ends once again. This time I'm going with the chalk, rolling with Travis Kelce. I think you get a couple of games out of him here, and he puts up big numbers, so I'll put him at tight end. And I'll put up Dalton Schultz, even though, again, Justin Kueber did not like Barkley. He did not like Schultz. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to submit Barkley. I'm going to submit Schultz here. Maybe Dallas only gets the one game this week against the 49ers, but it could be the type of 6 for 80 and 2 touchdown game that we have seen from Dalton Schultz before. Hurts, McCaffrey, Barkley, Diggs, Kirk, Higgins, Kelce, Schultz. Farrell, rip it apart.
We don't want to repeat ourselves on Higgins. I've already told you why I like Chase, and I'll stick with that. Schultz, a difficult matchup here, but he does go home. He's a Stanford guy. He plays at a high level. I never like to go away from this player, and I draft him in the FFPC every year. I don't see anything wrong with that bulky if you're going to double up tight ends. I would like – I don't want to shoot the horse that won the race, so I'm going to keep Isaiah Hodgins in at as my giant player. And that will open up a necessity of another running back position. So I'm probably going to I'll probably go with Hodgins over Kirk, and then I will come back with giving Etienne his due in that running back position. Although Barkley looks much more like a Super Bowl performer than, and I would love to see. Man, if Barkley got into the big game, I would love to see him rushing against some of these AFC teams. So now I'm going to get a second team and play one. No, wait a minute. I'm going to have a third team because I got to get.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah,
I'm up to 4 teams now. This is such a perfect lineup, Balky, that you've motivated me to have multiple teams. You're just a damn genius, is what you're
Well, we've already said on the show, and we said it last week too. Like, don't muddle around and tinker with one lineup. If you really like your lineup, enter it, and then if you like another lineup, enter that one too. And if you say like, oh my god, I submitted the 2 best lineups I possibly could, but this third lineup, it looks awesome. Submit that one as well. Okay, it's just money, right? You're trying to get life-changing money. You lose $35, $200 or whatever. Okay, fine. But if you win 100,000, now we're talking here.
That's 133,000 in Canada, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
which I'm looking at the numbers right now. I see Justin Kueber with 3, count them 4, now 5 additional teams since he signed off with us tonight.
Very good.
That may or may not be true. Not going to comment on that. Farrell, we will check out your Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. A lot of stuff going on in Super Bowl weekend. Something I hope to be a part of for sure. In that,
Please.
I really want to participate in those early drafts there. And should we give a shout out to R.A. Marino on the show tonight?
Oh, what a gentleman, and what a fantastic season. R.A. Marino, the 20th champion of the KFFSC. He took kind of the winning prize and will be awarded his trophy in August at Caesars, Southern Indiana, August 25th through 27th when he returns. And he comes from the Oregon territory, so he comes a long way to play in our event. And he's a worthy champion and a guy that everyone was pleased to see will be hoisting that trophy come August.
A worthy champion, a trophy hoister, and I'm pretty sure a future guest of this show as well, R.A. Marino. We'll get him on shortly. Farrell, listen, man, enjoy the divisional playoff games this weekend. Certainly appreciate you joining me on this Friday night. Nothing like I like more than talking ball with you here on this show. Be good, and we will talk with you again a week from today, dude.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Farrell. Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, check out his contest, kffsc.com. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, something I swear by. I've played in it as many years as I've known about it. I have played in it. I've increased my territory every year, and I have not regretted a single second of it. I want to shout out Farrell and Justin Kueber, tonight's guest, the 4th place finisher in the 2021 Footballguys Playoff Challenge last year, $10,000 winner. Thanks for him to coming on the FFPC. Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. It's a big show next Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Not going to lie. 10-9 Central, myself, Farrell Elliott, Dom Barani, Nick Costantino, and Sean Stutzman, the back-to-back winners of the FFPC main event, the guys who won $1 million this year, the first millionaires in FFPC history, are going to be joining, all 3 of them, going to be joining the show next week. That is going to be such a treat. We'll talk about their strategy in building a team, how they got it done, what they're going to do with the money. Hopefully they don't big time us. They're not going to big time us, but they got a lot of money right now, and I know they're celebrating the Pride of Buffalo, Go Bills trio, Don Barani, Nick Costantino, and then Sean Stutzman joining us live next Friday night, 10-9 Central. It's going to be a lot of fun. Want to remind everybody, if you're looking for advice on the FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge number 2, look no further. rotoviz.com/podcast or the FFPC YouTube channel, which you're watching right now. Tejas Badawala, a guy who won the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge 7 years ago, a guy who took 5th place in it last year, a guy who, if you look back on the Divisional Playoff Challenge final standings and the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, his name, along with Herschel Chef, is littered in there. Those guys know what they're doing. We went almost a full hour of strategy and advice on that, so make sure you're checking that out before you finalize your Playoff Challenge lineups this week as well. That was a lot of fun, and it is the last RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown of the season. We will go back to monthly. So the first Tuesday night of every month going forward, we'll be getting that show back going again. So you will not have another show now for another couple of weeks, and then we'll resume. We'll talk about the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, which is coming up pretty quick. So make sure that you are signing up for that next week as well. Spoiler alert, you can sign up for that at myffpc.com after Sunday, I believe. So make sure you're checking that out, along with all the best ball leagues that we got going on there. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network airs weekly Thursday nights at 7/6 Central. We had Ben from the Stealing Bananas podcast, the Stealing Signals Substack. Make sure you're signing up for that, bengretch.substack.com. We had him on Thursday night with my as my co-host. This coming Thursday, we go back to the GOAT District. You saw Dan Williamson on this show. Next Thursday, 7/6 Central, Theo Greminger is going to be my co-host for the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, only on the Better Sports Network. Download the app for free in the App Store or Google Play, and you can watch us live, participate, make an audio call, video call, whatever you want to do on that. Play for a $100,000 grand prize in the FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge. Play for a $25,000 grand prize for just a $35 entry fee with the Footballguys Divisional Playoff Challenge, and I'm going to give you the update on that right now. We are looking at, I want to say, about almost 70% full with the FFPC Playoff Challenge. The divisional round for the Footballguys Playoff Challenge, you're looking at almost 90% full. That is going to sell out shortly. The FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 is going to sell out. I shouldn't say it's going to sell out. My guess is it's going to sell out early tomorrow. We're going to make sure you're reminded of that via some emails and push notifications and some tweets, because that is, I think over the last 36 hours, we have sold a ton of teams in that. So don't miss out on that. You could still win a $100,000 grand prize based on 7 football games. So where else are you going to get that? Go to myffpc.com and sign up for that as well. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment on this video, share the video, and get notified so you know every single time we go live on the FFPC the FFPC YouTube channel, whether it is a playoff challenge primer, whether it is a weekly preview, whether it is live best ball, live main event, live football guys drafts, whether it is the Road to This High Stakes Lowdown. Once you click that bell, you are notified of all future shows. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on that. But make sure you're doing that at youtube.com/FFPC Fantasy. Thanks you so much for watching and listening, everybody. We certainly appreciate it. Enjoy all the games this weekend. Your divisional playoff weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We certainly appreciate it. My wife is calling right now. I'm assuming to make plans for tomorrow. Lucky me, my 9-year-old son is going to a basketball tournament, of which I cannot wait to watch, as I watch all of his games, no matter the sport, as much as I can. It is in Pulaski. If you're not familiar with Pulaski, I am in Northeast Wisconsin. It's roughly a 45-minute drive, just a little bit north of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And his first game, you guessed it, 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to send you guys an email tomorrow. We're going to participate on Twitter, tell you everything that you need to know for that divisional playoff challenge so you can sign up and try to win a 6-figure grand prize before the divisional playoff challenge, before the divisional playoffs launch at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Enjoy the games. I certainly appreciate it. And we will talk with you again next Friday with the back-to-back main event champs, the $1 million winners, Don Barani, Nick Costantino, and Sean Stutzman. Thanks, everybody.